What's happening, guys and girls? Acrinator here, and it's been a while since a new video's come out. That's partially due to spring break, and then Ion not working as I explained yesterday, and if you can notice the clutter behind me on the desk there, college has been a bit crazy this past week with tests and whatnot. But here we are with a brand new episode of World of Warcraft Dungeon Overview. Last episode we did Razorfen Downs, and this episode we're going to be running through Stratholme, and we are going to be doing both dungeons, the main gate and the service entrance. I'm going to be running through it with my level 100 Troll Enhancement Shaman right there. And with that being said, let's get straight into it. Stratholme is a former human city that once belonged to the kingdom of Lordaeron, before falling victim to the plague of undeath. There's a lot of the story I'd like to refrain from telling at this moment as a result of having to do the culling of Stratholme dungeon once we make it into the Wrath dungeons. But here's a brief summary of the backstory. After the Second War, and right around the beginning of the Third, Prince Arthas Menethil of Lordaeron was forced to make the impossible decision whether to allow his people to fall victim to the Scourge or slaughter them before they added to the Undead's ranks. Despite counsel from those closest to him, Arthas chose to cull the infected city of Stratholme, but his efforts made little impact in the end. The Scourge did end up taking the city, and managed to turn enough of its citizens into mindless abominations in order to gain a foothold in Lordaeron. Baron Rivendare was left in charge of overseeing Stratholme and all Scourge operations within the Eastern Plaguelands, until he was called upon to guard the floating necropolis of Naxxramas with the other Scourge horsemen. Since the Cataclysm, there's been quite a lot that's been happening within the walls of the Forsaken City. On one half of the city, the Scarlet Crusade has attempted to make a stronghold, only to be betrayed by the Dreadlord Balnazzar disguised as their commander. The Scarlet Crusaders have all been slaughtered and raised as undead in service of the Dreadlord and the Legion. The other half of the city has been gated off from the main entrance, and the only way to get in is through the city's old service entrance nestled within the Plaguelands barrier hills. In this portion of Stratholme, the Scourge, now led by Lord Arius Rivendare, have been holding down the fort in Baron Rivendare's absence. And just to avoid confusion, Lord Arius Rivendare and Baron Rivendare, that's currently located in Nax, are not the same. We adventurers are sent into the ever-burning city to assist the Argent Crusade in ridding Stratholme of the undead infestation, and finally putting it to rest. Stratholme is divided into two separate dungeons, despite being listed as just one in the dungeon journal. The main entrance is a level 42 to 52 dungeon located in the northwestern portion of the Eastern Plaguelands, while the service gate is a level 46 to 56 dungeon that's located to the east of the first entrance along the barrier hills. For both entrances, you shouldn't have to fight too many enemies on your way to them, but I wouldn't doubt if you happen to come across a few mobs here and there that'll need to be put in their place. The entrance to the main gate is pretty hard to miss, since it's labeled clearly on your map. To get there, just follow the first path you see me taking here. The service gate is quite a bit harder to find if you don't know where to look. From the first entrance, head east along the Eastern Plaguelands' northern barrier hills, like you see me doing here, and you'll soon run across a small stone entrance sticking out of the hillside. Once it's in your sights, it's kind of hard to mistake for anything else, since Stratholme is really the only thing in the area with that style of architecture. The first boss of Stratholme is Hearthsinger Forestin. Forestin was a traveling piccolo player who just happened to be in Stratholme during the time of the Scourge attacks. Like many, Forestin's spirit now wanders throughout the city, unable to come to terms with his unfortunate passing. Forestin has a passive ability called Incorporeal Defense that increases his dodge chance of all attacks by 50% when he's in combat. He will also occasionally cast Enchanting Lullaby on a random player, putting them to sleep for 8 seconds. This ability can and should be interrupted at all costs. The second boss of Stratholme is Timmy the Cruel. Timmy was once a soldier of Lordaeron, whose proper name was Timicin. He was infamous for being brutal on the field of battle, which some speculated stemmed from his being bullied as a young child. After being slaughtered by the undead and raised as one of them, his feeble, rotting mind is now forced to answer to the very nickname he loathed so very much in life. There's not much to this fight, besides the fact that Timmy will enrage at half health, drastically increasing his damage and attack speed. The third boss of Stratholme is Commander Malor. There's not much to say about Malor, unfortunately, just that he was a Scarlet Commander who fought valiantly against the servants of Balnazzar, but eventually fell with the rest of his kin, only to be raised in servitude soon after. Malor will cast Ground Slam every so often, stunning all players within 10 yards of him for 2 seconds. If you're a meleeer, there's not going to be any avoiding this ability, but for the casters, just stand out of the small room the boss is located in, and you should be out of range. Malor will also periodically cast Shadow Bolt Volley against all players within 30 yards. This spell takes quite a while to cast and can be interrupted. The fourth boss of Stratholme is Willy Hopebreaker. Willie was one of the first of the Crusaders which Balnazzar resurrected as his slaves, and he took an immense sadistic pleasure in utilizing the Cannoneer and finishing off the last of the Scarlet Resistance. Willie will summon risen riflemen to assist him in battle every 5 seconds. These ads spawn towards the back of the hallway, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to kite the boss over there in order to more effectively take out the ads. The boss will also cast Pummel on players who are casting spells too close to him, so be sure that you're far enough away from him when need be. The 5th boss of Stratholme is Instructor Galford. Galford was once the librarian of some of the most important tomes belonging to the Scarlet Crusade, but he was forced to watch in horror as all he loved burned before his eyes when Balnazzar's betrayal became complete. Forced to relive his final agonizing moments, Balnazzar gifted Galford with the ironically spiteful powers of fire. Galford will periodically cast Fire Nova, which damages all players within 10 yards. Because of this, anyone who's not melee should stand outside of the small boss room, much like with Commander Malor. The 6th boss of Stratholme is Balnazzar. Balnazzar is one of the Nathrazim, or Dreadlords, of the Burning Legion, and he was sent into the city of Stratholme for reasons unknown. Though it's not explicitly stated what Balnazzar's plans are, I have my theories. For those of you who don't know too much about the Warcraft lore, the Scourge was originally part of the Burning Legion. During the events of the Third War, the Lich King liberated his Scourge from the Legion's control and became its own entity. So I can imagine that Balnazzar has some sort of plan that will end in the Burning Legion regaining control over at least some of the undead forces. This would also seem to explain why he poses as a commander of the Scarlet Crusade, since they both had a common enemy, but that's just speculation for the most part. The Nathrazim are significant figures in the Warcraft universe, so it's no surprise that Balnazzar is one of the trickier bosses in this dungeon. He will cast Domination, taking control of a random player for 8 seconds. Just be thankful that the odds make it more likely that a DPS will be controlled rather than the healer or a tank. Balnazzar can also cast Sleep on a player, stunning them for 6 seconds. Finally, Balnazzar will cast Psychic Scream, causing all players within 8 yards to flee for 4 seconds. It seems to be a common theme in Stratholme about keeping casters away from the bosses. The 7th boss of Stratholme is the Unforgiven. This spectre was once a warrior of Lordaeron known as Lilia, who accompanied Arthas into the city during its culling. Though she knew exactly what she signed up for before entering, Lilia soon felt the repercussions of her actions, and took her own life to escape the madness of all that was going on around her. Of course, the Scourge leave no one to rest peacefully in the afterlife, and Lilia's spirit has been raised to relive her anguish eternally. The Unforgiven is accompanied by 4 ghost ads, and these should be taken out as soon as possible so they don't overwhelm the fight. Other than that, it's pretty simple. The 8th boss of Stratholme is Baroness Anastari. In life, Anastari was a ruthless noblewoman who took whatever she wanted. The Scourge recognized this aspect of her personality and decided that it was beneficial to their cause to rip her soul from her body, transforming her into a banshee. Instead of trinkets and jewelry, the Baroness now has an obsession with gathering the souls of the living. Anastari will cast Silence against all players within 10 yards, so casters be sure to stay out of range. Players will also be afflicted with a banshee curse if they're within 10 yards of the boss, decreasing their chance to hit by 35% for 12 seconds. The 9th boss of Stratholme is Nerub Enkan. Nerub Enkan was a fierce Nerubian warrior who fought in the War of the Spider before eventually falling in battle. She was then resurrected and brought to Stratholme to lead her fellow reanimated Nerubians in guarding the Ziggurats protecting Rivendell. The only noteworthy thing about this boss is that she will periodically summon Nerubian scarabs to assist her in battle. Just kill the ads like always and you shouldn't have any trouble. The 10th boss of Stratholme is Malachi the Pallid. Malachi is one of the only bosses in Stratholme that wasn't forced into serving some higher force, as he willingly joined the Cult of the Damned when it was first forming. He lusts for immeasurable power and wishes terribly to follow in the footsteps of Kel'Thuzad in becoming a Lich. Malachi will cast an ability called Ice Tomb, stunning his current target for 6 seconds. The healer should be ready for this ability, but at least you know who it's going to affect. The 11th boss of Stratholme is Magistrate Barthalas. Barthalas was the magistrate for Stratholme, and he was caught up in the carnage that ensued. Baron Rivendell resurrected him to take up his old position, but this time he'd be working for the Scourge instead. Barthalas has a buff that increases his damage and attack speed, called Furious Anger, and this can stack up to 25 times. All the more reason to kill him as quickly as possible. Barthalas can also cast Crowd Pummel, which damages all players within 10 yards, prevents spellcasting for 4 seconds, and knocks them back. Like pretty much every other boss in the dungeon, stay away from him if you don't have to melee. The The 12th boss of Stratholme is Ramstein the Gorger. This Scourge abomination is one of the most infamous among the undead ranks, having committed countless atrocities against the citizens of Stratholme when the plague first spread. Ramstein will periodically cast Trample, which will damage all players caught within 10 yards of the boss. You know what? Just bring nothing but mages into Stratholme and you should be fine. The 13th and final boss of Stratholme is Lord Arius Rivendare. Don't let the name Rivendare fool you. Arius actually has no relation to Baron Rivendare from Naxxramas. In reality, Arius is the same quest giver from the original dungeon back in Vanilla, found in the same chapel where the new quest givers are for the service entrance dungeon. Arius had fallen from grace in the light and retreated to the chapel to wait for others to come and aid him in his fight against the undead menace. He assisted adventurers in fighting Baron Rivendare back then, and ultimately sacrificed himself. In his final words, he claimed that he felt the light claiming his spirit, and that he would be able to spend his afterlife in peace. As it turns out, Arius wasn't headed for as glorious a death as we had all thought. He was resurrected as a Death Knight soon after the Cataclysm, in order to take Baron Rivendare's place as Lord of Stratholme, and was even given the honorary title of Rivendare, for some reason. Blizzard kinda glossed over that part of the story, but my best guess is that it could have something to do with attempting to trick adventurers into thinking Baron Rivendare was still there, which really wouldn't work out too well once they found him fighting in Naxxramas, but whatever. Arius will summon 6 mindless skeletons to assist him in battle, and while they don't do much damage, you absolutely should kill them as fast as possible. This is because 12 seconds after summoning them, they will be sacrificed and heal Arius for their remaining health. Arius also has an unholy aura, which damages all players once they're inside his boss room. This doesn't do too much damage, but it does place a soft timer on the fight, as the damage will eventually add up. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this episode, so be sure to leave your comments in the comment section below if you have any ideas about anything else you might want to see me play. And the comment question still stands. Try and guess the intro and outro songs to my videos. They're always the same. I never change them. Be sure to follow me on Instagram for the latest updates on when I'll be uploading YouTube videos, as well as when I'll be streaming on Twitch and other random posts. Be sure to check out my partner in crime, Sir John Mac's channel. He posts something every now and then, and it's usually pretty entertaining, whatever it is. So if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more like it, maybe even subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And that's all the time I've got for today. So until next time, don't die.